Hey guys, welcome back to my resource pack development logs for Java aspects. This is the third episode, and it's been a long 2 weeks of misleading assumptions. That's the theme today. I made some assumptions while working on development that it turned out were wrong, and I shouldn't have made them, and I ended up wasting time. That's an unfortunate thing that happens all the time when developing resource packs. You assume something is true because that's how it would work intuitively, but then the truth is that you're supposed to be doing something else. But here's the progress I've made over the last week. MultiPixel compatibility is added. This is something I wasn't planning on doing until I kept getting requests for it. I didn't realize that this was such a big request that I'd be compatible with MultiPixel, but there you go. I talked to Rainvey, the developer of MultiPixel. I had him add a little variable, or actually a few variables in global variables for his pack, so I can always tell when MultiPixel is enabled. So now the experience bar, boss bars, and item icons will all work correctly when you're using MultiPixel. You should apply MultiPixel above Java aspects though, and I also gave MultiPixel its own item icons, which I sent over to the creator of MultiPixel. We'll get more into that later. I changed the method of item name coloring to match Lucas's Java Parity pack, which gives it support for all languages. A very simple, it wasn't a simple change. A very small change, but it should help people who don't speak English or Mexican Spanish because those were the only languages that had implemented colored item text up to this point. Item text above the hotbar now disappears with Java Edition timing, which means it disappears instantly when you swap to nothing. This was another implementation from Lucas's Java Parity pack. It goes along with the item name coloring feature, and we'll also talk more about that later. And the last big thing I did this update was fixing zombie and drowned attack animations. I don't know why, but for a few updates now they've been totally broken, drowned especially. They just look very odd. Their left arm is down too much, their right arm is up too much, they didn't raise their arms when running. So I went through and fixed most of those. Finally, I added light block textures from Java Edition, which includes having a different texture when it's actually in the world than in your hand. Azalea and Deep Slate Top were using isotropic rotation, which means that they can rotate randomly, when I only wanted Deep Slate Top to use variation rotation, which is my own design based on randomly varying it between a few selected states, so it can't rotate any direction. It just makes it look more uniform. The last tiny thing is I changed the names of light and flowering azalea leaves, because on Bedrock they're called light block and flowered azalea leaves. That's all. That's what I've made the progress over the last 2 weeks, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but now we're going to go into the bad assumptions I made. For starters, I assumed a lot of things about the drowned. For some reason, I assumed that it had not been updated in a long time. This led to me working a lot on animations that I assumed would work fine until I tried them in the game, and they seemed to do nothing. The main issue is the hasTarget variable was not working for me, inexplicably. My guess now is that it's because drowned were updated to v1.16 in 1.16.210, but I didn't know that for hours and spent way too long tinkering with drowned, so the solution that we ended up getting for drowned animations is like I stacked a million little plates of china on top of each other, and it works, but they don't raise their arms anymore, and I'm gonna work on re-implementing the way it's done in MultiPixel because it's a lot cleaner. I also made a bad assumption when porting item text coloring from Lucas's Java Parity pack, so those item text above hotbar and item name coloring methods appeared to be connected in Lucas's code, because they had 4 different objects which were all different types of names: white names, yellow names, aqua names, and magenta names, which are the 4 colors that you can get names of in Java Edition. So I assumed, okay, items with these auxes listed in the binding will have these colors. It turns out that's not how Lucas did it. That was actually old code left in the file that gets overwritten by a subpack. So I spent an hour or two trying to implement code that didn't even work properly in the first place. I actually even optimized it, but I just optimized code that didn't work. It was a bad assumption that Lucas's pack did not overwrite with subpacks, and I should have checked that first. When adding MultiPixel compatibility, for some reason I assumed it would need to be done all on Java aspects, and I was ready to implement a whole separate item icon folder called MultiPixel next to the default texture pack, and that would have been a whole bunch more work because now I have to maintain 2 item icon sections at the same time. I had to have them all alternate in the UI code based on the variables that I asked Rainvay to implement, and that was a lot of work. And then I facepalmed after about an hour of trying things and realized I can just have Rainvay implement the item icons into MultiPixel and then they'll overwrite Java aspects automatically. It was much simpler and ended up saving me a whole lot of time. Finally, the last bad assumption I made was that Java aspects will be done quickly. Haha, just kidding. That actually is somewhat true almost now. I suspect within the next 2 weeks we should be seeing Java aspects complete, and then we can move on to porting to console aspects and then a release, so probably within a month. Here's what's left for Java aspects. It is so little that we can now put it into a list. I need to fix the first-person hand animation, the shield, the spyglass, the trident, and the map, because they got misaligned in some update with Bedrock, and they look really bad now, especially when Java aspects is enabled. So I think I'm going to work on implementing the MultiPixel code for those animations in first person, because Rainvay has a much better implementation, as seems to be common with animations. In third person, the shield moves a little weirdly when you eat food. I don't know why that is. That's another thing I need to fix. Jukebox text never disappears when you put a disc in a jukebox. I don't know why. And there's a little bit of misalignment with the text. You can see like the row above it kind of shining through. It's very odd. I don't know how that broke. I need to look into redoing the drowned animations with the MultiPixel versions, which I haven't done yet. I'm still using my China plate stacking method. There are also only 2 tiny things I need to do that are basically just here to list. I need to rename Mountains Fogs to Extreme Hills Fogs because Java Edition changed the name of the biomes back. I need to add the more transparent water, which is how MultiPixel has it, and it's how I used to have it in Java aspects until people kept reporting that it looked broken. In fact, Bedrock Edition finally fixed a bug that distant water will now stay transparent, so I can re-implement the old way it used to work and it will look much better. It'll be way more transparent, like Java Edition. And after all those changes are added, we got a port to console aspects, so that is the end of Java Aspects development log number 3. We made small but good progress. However, that progress was marred by a lot of incorrect, bad assumptions that led me down paths that were unhelpful and wasted a lot of time. I hope that doesn't happen again. So for now, I do want to tell you all, thanks for watching, and I will see you later.